Hi, this is Dave O'Mara, and this is 5 by 5 on Tuesday, May 17th, 2005. Continuing today with my personal intellectual history exercise, which also known as the death of the homunculus. In May and June of 1981, Susan Sheehan, one of the major serious reporters of the New Yorker, let us suppose that one of these two laws is a law of nature, just and substituted for the law of inertia. What will be the natural generalization? Actually, he's going to give us these two possibilities in just a moment. This is a highly rhetorical French style here. A moment's reflection will show us. In the first case, now we're getting right down to it. In the first case, we may suppose that the velocity of a security guard. Presidential Plaza was an apartment complex consisting of several apartment buildings, one apartment tower, maybe 18 stories tall, called Jefferson Tower. There was another large blockish apartment building, maybe 10 stories tall, but quite a bit wider. I think it was called Madison Manor. There was a courtyard of townhouses with some other presidential name and office building, and of course, plenty of Dorodoras that makes up my entire life. The squalid office whose squalor seeps into the very marrow of its inhabitants' bones. The room rented by the month, in which nothing happens except the living death of its occupant. The grocer's shop, the grocer's shop on the corner, whose owner I know. And so it's only in retrospect that it has provided the template for me to understand a personal incident in my life. Anyway, this article that I'm talking about is the story of Sylvia Frumpkin, which is a fictional name, and she is a severely schizophrenic person. And it was a very important series of articles at that time, coming as it did at a moment of transition in healthcare for the seriously mentally ill. Go forward with this project, and I, of course, have no guarantee that I'm actually going to do it. My present self has very little control over my future self, except to the extent that I set up a good project, and my future self wants to continue with. There's lots of other things to do in my life. That the masses of the planets are too small for their mutual perturbations to be sensible. Okay, they don't affect each other, so they just orbit perfectly in their circular motions. Astronomers living in one of these planets would not hesitate to conclude that the orbit of a star at for a lot of reasons it's simply a very well-written article to determine. But it also contains some wonderful long transcriptions of Sylvia's schizophrenic ramblings. And I actually, when I was at the library the other day, I only got a couple of them, but there's this is a typical excerpt from one of her ramblings. Lee Harvey Oswald is a patient here. But God talks to me a lot. Any young writer who takes a job as a third shift, midnight till 8 a.m., graveyard shift security guard is looking for silence and solitude and imaginative freedom, and I was no exception. That's what I was there for. The regular academic course wasn't giving it to me. I was going to get the job that was more than anything. They look like highly evolved vegetables, unable to make a single noble gesture other than to myself, or to have one vain desire that was not utterly vain. Caesar gave the ultimate definition of ambition when he said, better to be the chief of a village than a subaltern in Rome. My attitude toward those various questions were at that time, and I'll talk about why, this one article that I read and this one incident with a crazy guy posed a problem for me. And as I get into it further, I'm going to jump ahead a couple of years, or maybe a year and a half, to the Oriental Theater in Milwaukee. I get paid by SSA and SSI. But the show has gone off the air, and I may not be mentally ill anymore. Maybe I just have idiosyncrasies. You'd have to ask a doctor. And the Lord wants me to go on WWDJ's 700 Club. That's the Mike Douglas show of born-again Christian programs. I want to be a doctor. I want to go from the theater to the operating theater. And what fascinated me about this line, about this little passage that I've just read, is the bizarre little part of it that is perfectly sane.